I'm going to turn these back on. I don't think if anybody does watch it, they're not going to see it very well. I don't think you'll have problems, but I think I mentioned the book is yours. You know, we're not going to read all of it. You can write it. All right, what is his philosophy of life? This book is based on 2 years and 2 months, 2 years and 2 months. So it goes in July. 2 years later, I guess it would be September, he leaves. He spent these 2 years in a cabin that he built all by himself on the shores of Walden Pond. I've never seen it. I've seen pictures of it or portions of it. I don't really know how big it is. In my mind, it's not very big. You could swim across it. I don't know. It may not be, maybe bigger than that. It's just a pond. It's not a lake. There's nothing really special about the pond. And he is not a survivalist. This wasn't the point of this. Wasn't to go out and see if he could survive 2 years in the frozen north or in the Sahara Desert or someplace like that. It wasn't that at all. In fact, it's only a mile outside of his hometown, Concord, Massachusetts. And he went into town regularly, even weekly. Several times a week. He loved talking to people. So that wasn't the purpose. It wasn't to survive. It wasn't to be like a monk to punish himself. He was going out there to, well, he'll tell you in his own words, but to basically figure what life was like and write about it. And he's really clear. He's not always clear. That's one thing I get frustrated. He'll tell you he's going to say something, and then he moves seemingly away from it. I'm not a big fan myself, but particularly teaching it. You know, if you decide to read it, you surrender to that. You read it and you put up with it. If you're trying to teach it to maybe unwilling people, like I don't blame you for being that way. It's not like sometimes the most interesting. It's hard to teach it because okay, he's going into one of his rabbit trails, we might say. But anyway. It's still worth reading, at least once in your life. You will like things about Thoreau, what he thinks, and you will not like other things. Believe it or not, he's somebody that the movements, the war protest movements and the hippie movements in the 60s, the Back to Nature movement, they always go to Thoreau because of this book and what he did. And there are things about it that you could say he's exactly right about that. I don't know if he's a Christian. That's between him and God. He's been dead 150 years, but his behavior or his doctrine is not necessarily Christian, but his behavior is, or at least what he advocates for people to behave is. But that behavior doesn't make you a Christian. But anyway, that's a distinction I made. Doctrinally, not really, but at least he advocates things that Christians, probably the way Christians should act. But he has had an impact. You just have to trust me on that. And you'll see some of the words that crop up that describe him and his philosophy. You can see are really things that we claim about ourselves. I think we're losing. If you ask somebody 100 years ago, what are the things that Americans believe in? Is we know that's under attack right now. What are we? What do we believe in? And you'll see a lot of that. He didn't create those ideas, but he articulated them. And so people look back on him and say, yeah, he kind of described what it really means to be American. And when I went to college, the guys, the girls had curtains on their windows in their dorm room, but the guys, are the bare minimum settings that you live in all year. But every guy puts posters on your wall. So, so I go and you go to a bookstore, which they don't exist anymore, or you go to a record store, which doesn't exist anymore, but they'd sell posters. Invariably, you'd find a poster that had something that Thoreau said or Emerson said. There were people. They were quote machines. That's one of the things. If you want something really catchy and deep, go to Thoreau or Emerson or provocative. They're your man for this. I like this. You don't have to write it down. I think every child, well, every human being has in himself or herself a God-like whole. You know, God puts eternity in our hearts, so I think children are most sensitive to that. And I could just imagine, I never thought of this, but I thought it was really clever. He's looking up into the night sky, trying to see past the stars to see God. That's a childish thing, but I think kind of profound at the same time. I think we can all relate to that. All right, so some of these you really need to know. Probably not all of them. I think it's important to know when and where he lived. So July 12, 1817. In Concord, Massachusetts. You know, 3 of the books we've read have to do with Massachusetts. The Salem Witch Trials and the Crucible, the House of Seven Gables, could have been Salem. We're not sure exactly, but that's where the author Hawthorne lived at one time.